Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our telescope live stream for this evening. I'm Matthew. I'm the observatory manager here at the South Carolina State Museum. So I love it. About an hour or so ago, the sky actually looked fairly clear. And the sky looked kind of clear. I could see Venus. I could see the moon rising above clouds. But in the past hour, rain has moved in and now it's pouring rain. So we actually have some pictures of the moon that we've never shown before, um, that we took back in October around the time of International Observe the Moon Night. So let us know if you have any questions. We'll be cycling through a few different images of the moon. So pop any questions you might have in the comments. So we have a report that we were able to look through our telescope at the moon from Roundo, South Carolina. So that down there, maybe you don't have the rain that we have coming through here. It looks like there's a front coming through the state. And right now it happens to be in the Columbia, Lexington area. So right now we're getting all the rain. So I suspect that points probably, I'm not a weather forecaster, but I suspect points probably like to the south and east of us. We'll be getting the rain a little later this evening. Yeah, it just let loose here. Settled down just a little bit, but I've also heard some rumbles of thunder. Ooh, there's a nice rumble of thunder right there. Don't you love it? We're doing a telescope live stream in the middle of a thunderstorm. Gotta love it. So just to orient you to a few of the things you're seeing on our view of the moon, you'll see that there are those sort of grayish white areas. Those are called maria or seas. Now, they're not oceans like the Atlantic Ocean, but they are actually ancient lava beds. So those are the Marias or the seas there. And then you can also see, especially in this particular image, kind of over to the right side of it, at least in my view, you can see a whole bunch of craters where things like asteroids and meteors have smacked into the moon. So that's actually what you're seeing in this particular view. We do have some other pictures of the moon that we took on this particular evening last October, and I will be showing those and cycling through as we go through the hour here. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the Facebook comments or YouTube comments. So this is a non-moon related question. But I'm going to ask our audience here, but it is a current events question. What really cool launch is about to happen? What really cool astronomy related space launch is happening this coming week if all goes as planned? So, if you have any ideas of what space launch is coming up that everyone's really looking forward to, feel free to post that in the comments. I see one. Webb. Okay. Yep. James Webb Space Telescope. So, does anyone know why the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope is so cool, but yet so nerve-wracking? Why do you think the astronomers and mission scientists and engineers are so nervous about this launch? I'll give you a hint. It's not just the launch that has to go well. But what else? Does anyone know? Cost. Yeah, so the James Webb Space Telescope, I think, is about 14 years late. And it's like 10 billion over budget or something like that. $10 billion over budget. It is over budget and very late. So that's a big part of it. What has to happen to this telescope after it launches? All right, so let's chat about what has to happen to with the James Webb Space Telescope after it launches. So after it launches, it has to make its way out into space into a point I want to say is about 1 million miles away from the Earth. So it's got to get there. And the other thing is that this telescope is all folded up, so it can fit inside the rocket that's going to launch it. So it's all folded up. And then what's going to have to happen is the mirror for the telescope is going to have to open up kind of like a flower. But then there's also a sun shield. So the James Webb Space Telescope sees in what we call infrared light. This is light that is redder than the reddest light we can see with our eye. You can also kind of think of it as heat. Um, but in order for the James Webb Space Telescope to see infrared light, it actually has to block out the light of the sun with this sun shield. And the sun shield is in multiple layers. It has all these pins that have to deploy, and everything has to go perfectly with this sun shield being deployed. And If the sun shield does not deploy properly and astronomers are not able to fix it from the ground, we actually can't send astronauts up to fix the telescope. So you might remember that the Hubble Space Telescope, when it launched, it had some really bad problems with its main mirror and it was producing very blurry images. So a few years after the Hubble Space Telescope was launched, astronauts went up on the space shuttle and they actually put a device on the Hubble Space Telescope that actually acted like, contact lenses or glasses. And now the Hubble started producing beautiful images. We were able to fix Hubble, and Hubble has been serviced multiple times since then. New cameras have been put on it, the gyroscopes have been replaced. It's one of the reasons why Hubble has lasted so long. The thing about James Webb is that if something goes wrong, it's too far away from Earth for us to be able to do anything about it. We can't send astronauts there to fix it. So if James Webb ends up not working right, we end up with about like a $10 billion piece of space junk out there in space instead of a working telescope that is late and over budget. So it's super exciting, but send some good thoughts to the people who are involved in this mission. Um, a lot of careers and life work has been invested in the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's really kind of a risky thing that astronomers and NASA's doing. So send some good thoughts that everything works right and deploys properly. The first several months, actually, of the mission are going to be kind of nail biting, as astronomers and such seem to try to get the telescope up and running. So, yeah, this is going to be quite the nail biting adventure here. And once again, if you just joined us, right now we are under rain here at the museum. It has actually been pouring rain here. So we obviously are not opening up the telescope dome. I was going to show a live view of the moon tonight. We have this really cool new camera, by the way, which we're able to use to see the sun and the moon. And if you come to the museum during our daytime solar viewing hours, we're actually using this camera to look at the sun with our special solar telescope. We just put this new camera into operation within the past week or so. But I was going to use that new camera to show you the moon. But of course, when it's pouring rain, there's no opening the dome. So I actually am showing you some pictures of the moon that we took just a few months ago back in October that we've really never shown before. I'm actually going to switch to a different picture of the moon here. That's one of our pictures. Let me switch out here. I'm going to go to my screen share page. Probably going to see me shift a few things around. Ah, let's see here. That's a nice one. So there we go. Different view of the moon there. Now you can really see those craters there along the edge. So I'm curious, from where you're watching, is it raining? I know one of you reported that you were able to see the moon. So is it raining from where you're watching? Post in the comments. I'm just curious to see who it's raining for, who it's not, or maybe it rained earlier this evening for you. So tell me about the weather at your place where you're watching from. So, Amy, what's the weather like in Lexington? And once again, tell me about the weather where you are. Aha! Not raining in South Myrtle Beach and Surfside. Beautiful moon. What's so funny is this evening I thought I might be able to pull this off showing you a live view of the moon because when I left the museum to grab a bite to eat around 6 o'clock or so, and went out into the Vista area of Columbia, and I saw clear skies. I mean, there were some clouds around, but clear skies. I saw Venus. I saw the moon rising up above some clouds, and I thought, oh, nice. We actually might get a clear night, and I can actually show everyone a live view of the moon. But I get back to the museum, I'm setting up, I go outside, and I look at the sky, and it's completely clouded up, like completely. And then about 5 minutes before we started this stream, I heard the sky open. So just dump, the rain came. So we're doing an astronomy live stream in a rainstorm right here. And look at us, it can't stop us. Rain can't stop our fun. So yeah, I'm looking at this view of the moon here, and there are all these really great craters. And then there are those dark areas down to the lower, kind of the lower left. Those Maria or seas, those lava flows on the moon. And then down to the bottom, there's that really big crater. And you might notice that that big crater has like a thing inside of it. The thing inside of it is called the central peak. So a lot of larger craters on the moon actually have mountains inside of them. And the way these mountains happen is when something comes in and bangs into the moon, like an asteroid or meteor, the surface actually will rebound out as the crater is forming, and that forms that what we call central mountain or central peak inside these larger craters. So that's very common on the moon to see those mountains inside a crater. Does anyone know what the line between lunar night and lunar daytime is called? So that's going to be the line between the light side, the lit side, and the dark and the unlit side of the moon. And in this view, it's going to be where you see all those craters kind of off to the side. Does anyone know what that line's called? It's kind of a fun name. Shall I entertain you all and tell you what that line is called? If you want me to tell you what that line is called, post yeah in the Facebook comments. or YouTube comments, depending on where you're watching. All right, folks. All right, there's a yeah. I want to see one more yeah or yes, and then I'll tell you what that line's called. One more. Someone put a yeah in the Facebook comments. All right, I see another one. So that line up. There's Brittany. Brittany says, yeah. Hi, Brittany. Good to hear from you. So that line is called the Terminator. I'm going to put that in the comments. The Terminator. That sounds a little scary, doesn't it? But it's that line between basically the daylight and the night part of the moon. And along the Terminator, the shadows are the longest, and that's where we can see the most detail in terms of craters and such. So it's a great time to, great place to look, is when the moon has that day-night line, and you can see that Terminator and those craters and such there. Right now, tonight, I believe the moon is full moon tonight. Let me just double check that. I'm going to look on my moon website here. Let me look on my moon website here. Moon phases, December 2021. Make sure I'm not lying about the moon phase. Am I a moon phase liar? Okay, so the moon is actually full tomorrow night. So we're one day before full moon. And the so when the moon is full, what happens is that there really is no terminator. Basically, we're seeing the entire moon in daylight, and what that does is it makes the craters and such look like there's a lot less contrast. So it's harder to see things like craters and mountain ranges and such on the moon when the moon is full because we don't have those shadows that allow us to see all that detail. So yeah, the moon's gonna be full tomorrow night. So my next question for you. If we're looking at the moon with our telescope, can we see the flag that the astronauts left on the moon? Yeah, it really was decided to rain too. So can you see the flag on the moon that the astronauts left with our telescope? What do you think? Got a couple of responses. Any others? Yeah, that's right. We can see the flag. So, really, with a telescope, we can see objects down to things that are like several miles across. So, the flag is a way too small for us to see with a telescope because we're seeing things that are like several miles across or several kilometers across, and not like little footprints and uh, and the flag and all that kind of stuff. So remember, if you have questions for us, feel free to pop those in the Facebook or YouTube comments, and we will answer them here on the air. Yeah, so there's several. There's like the blue moon, harvest moon. A lot of these names are actually Native American names, and I'm not remembering them. I'd have to look it up. Um, but yeah, the moon does have a bunch of comments. So, Holly, there are many opportunities to visit the museum and look through the telescope. So, that is actually one thing that we're not doing at the moment is nighttime viewing. Currently, we're not doing that every week like we did before COVID, but it is something we're looking at how to bring back. So we're doing daytime telescope viewing of the sun. We do have some special nighttime opportunities coming up, and the big one is going to be the lunar eclipse on May 15th. So May 15th, 2022, there's going to be a lunar eclipse that's going to start kind of like 10 at night on the 15th, and then it's going to extend into the early morning on the 16th. And the plan right now is for the museum to be open that night. So we'll have an eclipse event. So that's something to watch out for. So the next lunar eclipse is going to be definitely visible from Colombia. I think it's going to be visible over much of North America. Let me just see if I can find a map of that eclipse. Just a second. May 15th. That's the thing about lunar eclipses is that they are visible over large areas of the Earth. Unlike solar eclipses are actually only visible over a small area. So let's see if I can find a good map here. That's not what I wanted. So actually, the eclipse is going to be visible over most of North and South America. But for our friends who live in like the Pacific Northwest, the eclipse will already be in progress as the moon is rising. So they won't quite get to see all of it. But well, for us here in Colombia, we're in a prime spot to see the moon, to see that eclipse. Why do moonbows appear like last night? Can you describe what you're seeing? Did it look kind of like a ring around the moon, like a halo around the moon? Yeah, okay. So if it were like it was like a white halo around the moon, so last night it cleared up. We had a member event here at the museum last night. We had our member holiday party, and the museum was open. Um, and the observatory was open, and it did clear up enough for us to see the moon. Um, but what happened was that it was kind of this cloudy, still high cloud kind of night. And on a night like that, you can actually get ice crystals in the atmosphere that will form this halo around the moon. And what's interesting about that halo is that it's always the same size. It always stretches out to about 22 degrees away from the moon. And that's because of the way those ice crystals in our atmosphere refract the light from the moon. So, yeah, we call those a 22-degree moon halo. So that could have been what you were seeing. I also see all the colors of the spectrum were there. Huh. I wonder, can you describe a little more of what the conditions were like? Was there any kind of rain or what were you seeing those colors? It's almost one of the things where I would have to see probably a picture of it to tell you a little bit more about what that was. I'm going to put a link here in the comments about those moon halos. This link has some really nice pictures. So it's a Farmer's Almanac site. So I'm going to post this for you. So this is one to check on. That one's got some really great pictures. And then let me find, there's another, this is actually from Earth and Sky. This is another good description about 22-degree halos here. Hey, Anita, good to see you. Thanks for the holiday wishes. And so often you see those 22-degree halos when there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. Maybe the sky is partially clear, but there's maybe some weather moving in. And that definitely would have been the description last night. So last night it was cloudy around sunset, but then it sort of partially cleared up. And we were able to show the moon from the observatory for our member night. But then I shut down the telescope. I got home, and by the time well, first of all, as I was shutting down the telescope, I could start to feel some moisture on some areas in the observatory, especially outside on the terrace, and that meant the humidity was rising. And then when I got home, it was foggy. So when there's that kind of moisture in the atmosphere, that's when you're really going to see those moon halos. So, and sure enough, had a moon halo potentially last night, and then rain tonight. Pouring rain here. Does anything in particular cause ripped, puffy clouds? I don't know. Is there any way you can post a link to a picture of what you're talking about in the comments? I know some things about clouds, but I'm an astronomer, not quite so much a meteorologist, although I have to be very aware of the weather. I'm not quite up on all of my clouds and all the specifics. I know general types like cumulus and cirrus and cumulonimbus and all of that, but uh, some of the subtleties of clouds I'm not as up on. Do I have a degree in astrophysics? No, I don't. All my degrees are in music. And I'm the observatory manager here at the State Museum. So here's the thing, us astronomy educators and museum educators, we took all kinds of crazy paths to our jobs. We often don't have degrees in the fields we teach in the museum, and we all have different stories about how we got here. And part of the reason for that is that when museums are looking for educators, they actually tend to hire more, especially if it's not like a research position. If it's more of a public engagement position, museums will tend to hire based on how you communicate, how you interact with people, your attitude, how you work as a team, much more than what your degree is in. Now, I actually, in graduate school, did a lot of volunteer astronomy teaching. I taught for an astronomy camp for kids. I did a lot of work volunteering in the classrooms, doing teacher workshops and teaching astronomy lessons in classes as part of a program that paired astronomers and teachers. I was at University of Arizona for graduate school where there's a lot of astronomy going on. So astronomy was kind of my hobby then, and all that experience kind of turned into astronomy being my full-time job. Kind of a cool story. But yeah, you'll find that museum educators tend to come to their positions in a wide variety of ways. There's like not one set path. I'm gonna switch. We have 3 of these moon views that I wanted to show you, so I'm gonna switch out to our 3rd one here. And here we go. Yay! 3rd moon view coming right up. There we go. I know, it is really warm. What I'm wondering is if it's gonna cool off because this Weather could be a front going through. Let me look at the weather forecast. I'm just curious. Let's see here. Yeah, so it looks like tomorrow the temperature's gonna drop, and then as we get into the early part of this coming week, we're gonna have highs in the low 50s. So yeah, this really warm weather isn't gonna last. How hot or cold does it get on the moon? Well, the thing about the moon is that it gets really hot on the side that's facing the sun, and on the side that's not facing the sun or in night, it gets really cold. So let me look that up for you. It's some really, really crazy numbers. So, moon temperature range here. So the moon can reach about 260 degrees Fahrenheit at its surface on the part of the moon that's facing the sun. But on areas of the moon that are in darkness, the temperature can dip down to negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit. So you get these wild swings of temperature on the moon because the moon doesn't have an atmosphere. So the parts that are facing the moon, or excuse me, parts that are of the moon that are facing the sun get super hot. Yeah, really cold and hot. And then the parts of the moon that are uh, facing away from the sun get really cold. So these wild swings in temperature. Any spectacular sky happenings in the next few weeks? Nothing is really coming to mind. Um, Although there is a really amazing space happening coming, and that's actually going to be this week, something I mentioned earlier. So if you just joined us, that amazing space happening is that right now it's scheduled for the morning of Christmas Eve, December 24th. The James Webb Space Telescope is going to be launching. It's not going to be launching from Florida. It's going to be launching from a location in South America called French Guiana. I think that's how you say it. It's down there very close to the equator. So the James Webb Space Telescope, which is this big infrared telescope, much larger than Hubble, that's going to allow us to see things like um, the first galaxies forming, or maybe even planets around other stars. It's going to be an amazing telescope, and it's launching this week on Christmas Eve. if the launch date doesn't change. The launch date does seem to be getting changed around. It was pushed back a couple of days the other day. It was going to be on the 22nd, but got pushed to the 24th. So we'll see how that goes. But the thing about the James Webb Space Telescope is it's going to be this amazing telescope, but it's got to work first. So astronomers and mission scientists and engineers and folks at NASA and all of that are really, really nervous because this telescope can't be fixed if something goes wrong once it's up in space. Unlike Hubble, you might remember that the Hubble Space Telescope had a really messed up mirror and it showed really blurry images. And astronomers were able to go up in the space shuttle and fix that. They were able to put like some corrective optics on the Hubble Space Telescope. If something goes wrong with the James Webb Space Telescope, we can't send astronauts out there. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. First of all, basically the spacecraft, or excuse me, the telescope is all folded up so it can fit inside the rocket. And then once it gets up, it has to unfold. So the mirror has to unfold, which is going to unfold kind of like a flower. But then, since it's an infrared telescope, it's a telescope that's seeing light that's redder than our eyes can see. Basically, it's also that sort of heat. Um, so, because it's an infrared telescope, it has to be shielded from the sun. So, there's this giant sun shield on this telescope, and the sun shield has to get deployed and unfolded. And that's especially the part where there's a lot that can go wrong. Something could get stuck, not line up right, and all of that. And if the sun shield doesn't deploy properly, then the telescope, which by the way is 10 years over, $10 billion over budget, I think it's some number like that, and 14 years late. If this all doesn't go right, um, it ends up as this giant piece of space junk out there in space instead of this really wonderful telescope. So send a good thought for our NASA folks and astronomers. A lot of people have their life work and careers and creative energies tied into this telescope. So it's a very risky thing that we're doing. Astronomers and NASA engineers and such have tested it a bunch. Um, so we should be optimistic that it's going to work, but definitely this is a really risky thing that we're trying to do here. So we want to send some good thoughts for our folks who are actually not quite so much going to be celebrating the holidays. Probably they're going to be really hoping this launch goes well. And then they're going to be really hoping that getting the telescope up and running goes well, because that's actually going to take a few months after the launch to get everything going. And there's actually a pretty significant period of time where there's a lot that could go wrong. So this is a pretty nerve-wracking thing. You know that expression when you're talking about something that's maybe not as complicated as someone's making out to be. You'll say, "Oh, that's not rocket science," right? Well, this is rocket science. Launching this telescope is most definitely rocket science, and a whole lot of other types of science too. Lots of science and engineering that's gone into this. So keep your fingers crossed, send good thoughts for our astronomers that they get a really, really great Christmas present, that it launches right, and then a really great, like, New Year's present that it works right. And once again, if you did happen to join us, we're doing this telescope live stream in the middle of a rainstorm, although it sounds like the rain's died down a bit. We were going to show you a live view of the moon, but about 5 minutes before I started the live stream, the sky opened. So we're showing you some pictures of the moon that we took back in October that we've actually never shown before. So that's what you're seeing here on the screen. This is actually a picture of the moon from our telescope that we took on a really, really clear night back in mid-October. So we had these pictures kind of ready to go in the hopper just in case we got a night like tonight when the clouds decided to open on the day when we're trying to do a live stream. So that's what you're seeing. Can we see the ISS fly over anytime soon? Let me tell you how you can find out. There's a website called Heavens Above, I'm going to put this in the Facebook comments. And what you have to do with heavensabove.com, I'm actually going to pull it up in front of me right now, is you have to make sure it's set for your location, whatever that happens to be, Columbia or Myrtle Beach or Charleston, wherever you happen to be. Like right now, my heavensabove.com is set for nothing. It doesn't know where it is, so it's not going to work. Let's see, where do I set that? Location, I'm going to click on unspecified. I don't need that ad. Go away, ad. And we are going to see if it'll geolocate my location here. Yep, geolocated my location here in downtown Columbia. And I am going to update the position here. Let's see if there are any ISS passes coming up. Well, it actually looks like there's several International Space Station passes coming up for Columbia. So remember, this is for Columbia, and if you're other places in the state, it could be different. But it looks like on the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd, we have International Space Station passes, and some of them look pretty bright. But here's the thing, they're early in the morning. Like the one, there's a really, really bright one that's coming up, but it's going to be like tomorrow morning at 6, about 6:18. And then on the 20th in the morning, there's a really bright one at 5:33. There's a fairly bright one on the 21st at 4:48 in the morning, followed by even brighter pass at 6:21 that morning. And then we've got on the 22nd, a bright pass at 5:36 in the morning and a bright pass on the 23rd at 6:24. You're probably not going to remember all of that, but you can go to that website, heavensabove.com, to find that info. And again, that's info for Columbia. So you would want to set that for your location. It's the ISS on the ecliptic. It is actually not. We find our solar system objects on the ecliptic, but the ISS can actually pass over in any kind of direction, depending on where it is in its orbit and how it happens to be orbiting over us. So yeah, it is not an ecliptic object. Yeah, Spot the Station's another source for looking at the ISS. It's not one I'm as familiar with. The one I usually use and a lot of astronomy types use is heavensabove.com. And one of the neat things about Heavens Above is that if you have a listing of those passes, if you actually click on the date, you'll actually get the path, a sky map with the path of the space station over you. Let me see. I'm going to have to make this moon go away. I think I already did. We're going to make moon go away. And I'm going to screen share an example of heavensabove.com. Let me just, let's see. I think I can get this to work. I might have to open it in another window. Let's see here. Can I get this? Yeah, just a second. I'm going to have to redo what I'm doing here. I'm going to open a new window, heavensabove.com. All right. So let me bring this up. One thing I'm going to caution you about is that heavensabove.com does have ads on it. I generally don't like showing things that have ads on these online programs, but since this is a great website, we will kind of just go with the fact that it has ads. So this window, let's make sure it's showing up here. We have this window up in that top right, and that's where you set the location. You actually have to click on that spot where it says unnamed, and then it'll give you a screen where you can set location. This is a map right here that shows where the ISS is currently right now. It's over around the tip of South America. And then there are a bunch of different satellites that this shows. So I'm going to click on ISS here. And then these are all those times that I was reading out just a minute ago. Those are the passes that are coming up um, in Colombia. So remember, this is Colombia. And their times, their start times, the time when the ISS gets highest in the sky, and then the time it ends. So like there's one on the 19th. So tomorrow morning at 6:18, going to be pretty bright. Here's the sky map of where it's going to be. So this one, if you're wanting to look at the look for the ISS, this past tomorrow morning at a little after 6:15 is actually going to be a really good one because I'm looking at this map here and it's going to cut across way high up in the sky. So this is going to be, hopefully it'll be clear. Maybe we'll get some of this rain and such out of here. If it happens to be clear tomorrow morning, this would actually be a good ISS pass to catch because it's going to be really bright, passing really high overhead. So that'll be really easy to spot and really awesome. If you're wondering what the ISS looks like, uh, it actually looks like this bright moving object. You might think it's a plane when you see it for the first time. It's actually the thing that's going to make it look different from a plane, though, is when you see it, you'll see that it's moving like a plane moves, but it doesn't have any flashing lights. That's actually one of the best ways to tell a plane and a satellite apart because both look like moving objects in the sky. Planes will have flashing lights. If it's like the steady light that's moving across the sky, nothing's flashing, it's probably a satellite. It's a great way to tell the two apart. So we're about to wrap up here. So let me just make sure we give you info on the next one of these live streams because we're doing these on the first and third Saturdays of the month. And guess what the first Saturday of January is? It's New Year's Day. So we're going to be taking New Year's Day off. So we will not have a live stream on January 1st, but our next one will be on the third Saturday of January. So that will be Saturday, January the 15th. So we'll take a little bit of a break here for the holidays and we'll have another stream on January the 15th. And with any luck, it won't do things like pour rain right when I'm starting the live stream. And hopefully we can actually see something in the telescope. So I'm going to go ahead and say good night to everyone. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for all your great questions and interaction and support of the museum. And you'll have a wonderful holiday and we'll see you in 2022. So bye everyone.